Welcome to the Team Ottawa podcast. I'm Sam LaPrade. Of course, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe is here, and we're celebrating our 200th anniversary as a city. And it has me kind of reflecting on some of the things I love about this city. I know you love this city too.
I do love the city. And, it's an interesting thing to talk about, right? Because why do you love people, you love, maybe your favorite band or artist, you love a certain kind of music, you love a sports team, whatever. But why do you love a city, right? What is it about a city that makes it special? And why do I love this city in particular? And I think for me, I was born here. I've lived my whole life in Ottawa. I've never lived anywhere else. But my parents were both immigrants to Canada, and they arrived in Ottawa, and they met here working at the MetLife, big employer in the 1950s and 1960s in Ottawa. And I've always felt very grateful to have been born here and very grateful that my parents met here. And part of that has to do with the story of Ottawa being a bilingual, multicultural city, which I'm very proud of. And the fact that my mother's family, which was a family of mixed race coming from China, my grandfather was Chinese, my grandmother was from France, and they had been living in China for years and much longer than they thought they were going to because of the war. And so they chose to move to Canada and to move to Ottawa, and they were welcomed here. And I've always felt very grateful for that. And that's why, I love the multicultural, bilingual aspect of Ottawa, because my grandmother and my mom were French. French was my mother's first language, and they were welcomed here, even though they were coming from Asia, which was unusual at that time. And then, you can talk about the natural beauty of our city. It is an incredibly picturesque place, and there's so much green space and so much water, so much recreational space, bike paths and running paths and recreational paths. And then there's the, vast size of Ottawa, the diversity, the rural villages, the wonderful suburban neighborhoods, and the urban part of Ottawa that everybody knows so well. So I love all of that as well.
Absolutely. And I know you talk a lot about how many cities sit inside of our geographical area. It is incredible.
It's a big city.
How big we are.
Yeah, you can fit Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary inside Ottawa. And that's why, it's often overlooked. People think of downtown, the Parliament buildings, the Rideau Centre, that kind of thing. But, Metcalfe is part of Ottawa. Navan is part of Ottawa. Carp. Cumberland, wonderful rural villages, amazing suburban communities. If Toronto were the size of Ottawa, it would include all of the GTA, Mississauga, Brampton, places like that, Oshawa. We have all of that inside our city. What do you love about Ottawa?
Well, I got to tell you, I've really been reflecting on it because I arrived when I was 13. With very high hair,
right?
Because that was the thing to do back
of course,
then.
Yeah.
And I went to St. Matt's High School, and to be in a community that was bilingual was new to me. I came from Deep River at the time, and so that was new to me. So learning a new language, and then I think part of it for me was just how accessible everything was. It
was easy to get around, right? Yeah,
very much so. And just the opportunity to meet friends, whether they were, downtown or they were in the Orleans area. And then I went to Pius, of course. We're both graduated from Pius. And just the opportunity now to bump into those people. And sometimes someone's coming towards me and I'm like, did I go to St. Pius or did I go to St. Matt's with them? But for me, it's about the people.
Yeah.
Because this is the smallest big city for me that we have in this country.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about too. Ultimately, it is the people that make this a great community, and it's a very kind and generous and welcoming community. You've been working in fundraising for decades, and so you know how generous the people of Ottawa are. They rise to the occasion. We have a lot, as everyone knows, there are a lot of public servants, people who work in the public sector in our city. And those are people who choose to work in that space because they want to make a difference in their community, in their province, in their country, in the world. And so they're by nature, they're caring people who are focused on improving life for others. And I think that's reflected in the nature of our city and how people behave. There's a lot of volunteers, there's a lot of young people who volunteer, a lot of seniors who volunteer, families who go out and volunteer. We have the universities here, so there's a huge population of young people doing amazing things. In addition to the government employment base, we've got a lot of technology and entrepreneurship and innovation going on in the city, so there's a really nice balance and blend. So there's a lot of that's a huge part of it for me, is just how amazing the people are. And I get to see so many of them in the job that I have. That's very inspiring to me.
The other day I was walking down Elgin Street and this couple had a map and they were trying to figure out where they were going. And so I love recommending as well to tourists, my favorite restaurant or where they should go,
Sure.
even outside the downtown core. There's so much to see in the city.
Yeah.
So it is wonderful to reflect on that.
Yeah, a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. First of all, I'm going to admit I have a little bit of a pet peeve when it comes to how people talk about Ottawa, because there's a tendency, how they say, like, when you're on Instagram, you're always comparing up.
Right.
You're comparing to people who have more than you all the time and feeling inadequate. And I think there's a tendency for people in Ottawa to do that, because we're always comparing ourselves to Toronto and Montreal. We're always comparing ourselves to other G7 capitals. And we're a lot smaller than Toronto and Montreal and those other G7 capitals. You look at the G7 capitals, London, Paris, Tokyo, these are, even Washington, long established cities with 4 to 10 times the population of Ottawa. They're much older. Most of them, except for Washington, places like Rome and Tokyo, they're the largest city in the country. They're the financial center as well as the nation's capital. So when people, I do have a bit of a pet peeve when somebody goes to Paris and comes back and says, oh, they have this in Paris, but we don't have it in Ottawa. I don't think that's a fair comparison. I think we actually punch above our weight in a big way as a city.
I agree.
Because we're the capital, we have all the benefit of the national museums and galleries, the National Arts Center, plus a very robust local cultural scene. And I'll say, this is not the Ottawa that you and I went to high school in, right?
So true.
It's so much more cosmopolitan, so much more diverse, so much more to do in the city than when we were teenagers. I talk about this all the time. We've got huge performing arts community in Ottawa, theater, music, dance. The restaurant scene has really evolved since I was a kid, where there's just some really, really top-notch restaurants and chefs in our community. The vibrancy of the city has really changed. So I think we have a lot to be proud of, a lot to love about Ottawa, a lot to celebrate as we turn 200. And I would just remind people, if you were to compare Ottawa to other North American cities of 1 million people, I think you'd be proud of what we've got here. If you're going to compare us to London and Tokyo and Rome, of course they're bigger, older, more established cities. But if you're going to compare us to cities of 1 million people in North America or Europe, I think we're doing great. Sure, we have lots of things that we still need to work on and fix, but I think we have a lot to be proud of. It's a beautiful city. It's a kind and caring city, and it has a great future.
I 100% agree. Thanks for reflecting with me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. And of course, celebrating the 200th anniversary of Ottawa. This is the Team Ottawa podcast with Mayor Mark Sutcliffe.